I'm 88 years old now, and there isn't much left ahead of me. The doctors don't say it plainly, but I can hear it in the way they pause between words. At this age, you don't need anyone to explain what's coming. You feel it in your bones, in the way the mornings arrive a little heavier than they used to. When I was 20, I made a decision that felt small, sensible, responsible. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I'd have time later to fix what it cost me. I was wrong. At 20, you don't think in terms of endings. You think in terms of beginnings. I had just finished school. My father had been sick for years, and my mother was tired in a way that went beyond sleep. We didn't have much. Not the kind of poor that makes headlines, just the quiet kind. The kind where you count coins before buying bread. I had been accepted into a university 3 states away. I remember holding the letter in my hands. I read it so many times the folds started to tear. It felt like a door opening. And then my father had a stroke. It didn't kill him. Sometimes I think it would have been easier if it had. Instead, it left him half there. His right side wouldn't move. His speech came out tangled and angry. My mother looked at me the way mothers do when they don't want to ask, but they need to. So I made the decision. I told the university I couldn't attend. I took a job at the local factory. Just for a year, I said, until things settled down. They never settled. The factory was loud and hot in the summer, cold in the winter. I worked 12-hour shifts sometimes. I'd come home with my hands aching and the smell of metal stuck in my hair. My father would be in his chair by the window, staring out at nothing in particular. He used to be a strong man. I think that was the hardest part, watching him shrink inside himself. I don't regret taking care of him. I need to say that. I loved my father. I loved my mother. I did what a son does, but I regret telling myself it was temporary. 1 year became 3. 3 became 5. By then the idea of leaving felt impossible. The factory promoted me. I was reliable. I showed up. I didn't complain. People started saying I was steady. Steady is a nice word. It's also a trap. There was a girl back then. Her name was Margaret. We used to sit on the hood of my old car and talk about the future, like it was something we could shape with our hands. She wanted to be a teacher. I wanted, I'm not even sure now, something with books maybe, writing, learning. I just knew I wanted to see more than our town. When I told her I wasn't leaving for school, she nodded. She said she understood. She was kind like that, but I could see something dim in her eyes. She left 2 years later, not in anger, just forward. She got a job in another city, met someone, sent me a wedding invitation written in careful script. I didn't go. I told myself I was being loyal to my family. I told myself love could wait, that life would circle back around. It doesn't circle back. It moves in one direction. My father lived another 9 years. My mother followed him 2 years after that. By the time I buried her, I was 31. The house felt hollow. All those years I'd stayed to protect something. And suddenly there was nothing left to protect. I remember standing in the kitchen, looking at the peeling wallpaper, thinking, now I'll go. But by then I wasn't 20 anymore. I had seniority at the factory, a small savings account, a reputation. Starting over didn't feel brave, it felt foolish. I had gotten used to being the dependable one, the man who sacrifices, the one who stays. So I stayed. I married at 35. Her name was Elaine. She was practical and warm, and she deserved a better version of me than the one she got. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl. I loved them in the way men of my generation were taught to love. By providing, by fixing the sink, by paying the bills on time. I told myself they'd understand why I missed the school plays, why I was too tired for bedtime stories some nights. I'm doing this for you, I'd say. I said that a lot. The promotions kept coming. Supervisor, then manager. The pay improved. We moved into a bigger house. On paper, it looked like success. People shook my hand, asked for advice, called me responsible. But somewhere along the way, I stopped asking myself what I wanted. The cost of that decision at 20 wasn't dramatic. It didn't ruin me overnight. It was slower than that. It was in the way I stopped dreaming out loud. The way I hesitated when someone asked if you could do anything. It was in the quiet envy I felt when I saw young people leaving town with suitcases and fear in their eyes. I used to think fear was something to avoid. Now I know it sometimes means you're alive. Elaine and I grew apart without either of us meaning to. It wasn't a fight. It was distance. Two tired people managing a life instead of living it. She once asked me, very softly, "Are you happy?" I said. Of course. I don't think either of us believed me. The turning point came when I was 62. The factory closed, just like that. A letter, a meeting, handshakes and apologies. 40 years in one building, and then it was gone. I drove home in silence. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. For the first time since I was 20, there was nothing tying me to that place, and I realized I didn't know who I was without it. Elaine had passed the year before. Cancer. Quick and cruel. My son lived across the country. My daughter had her own family and her own worries. I was alone in a house that felt too big. That's when the clarity came. Not like lightning, more like fog lifting. I saw my life in a straight line. One decision made out of love and fear. One decision I never revisited. I had assumed there would be a better time to choose myself. A calmer season. A moment when no one needed me so much. That moment never arrived. I'm not saying I should have abandoned my parents. I'm not saying responsibility is wrong. But I wish I had questioned the story I told myself, that staying was the only way to love them, that leaving meant betrayal. Maybe I could have found another way. Maybe I could have gone to school later, tried something new at 31 instead of clinging to what was familiar. The years after the factory closed were quiet. I started reading again. I even took a writing class at the community centre. Saturday in a room with people young enough to be my grandchildren. My hands shook when I shared my work. One of them told me I had a voice. I wanted to laugh. I had a voice at 22. I just didn't use it. Now, at 88, I sit by my own window the way my father used to. The afternoons stretch long. I think about Margaret sometimes, about the version of me who boarded that train and never looked back. I don't romanticize it. I know that life would have had its own sorrows, but it would have been chosen. What can't be fixed isn't the career I didn't have. It isn't the city I never lived in. It's the years I spent believing I had no choice. The conversations I postponed, the risks I labeled irresponsible. Time doesn't announce when it's running out. It just keeps moving. My children visit when they can. They are good to me. I am grateful, truly. I look at their busy faces, and I see myself in them. The same tired determination. The same promise that they'll rest later. I don't tell them they're wrong. It isn't my place. Every generation has its burdens. But if you're listening to me now, I'll say this gently. Don't wait for a perfect season to live your own life. Don't assume love only looks like sacrifice. Sometimes love also looks like courage, like trusting that the people who care about you can survive your growth. I carried my duty like a badge. I wore it proudly. I just didn't realize it was also a chain. There's gratitude in me. For my parents, for Elaine, for my children. I had moments of real happiness, laughter at the dinner table, the weight of my newborn son in my arms, the way my daughter used to slip her small hand into mine. Those memories are real, they matter, but so does the quiet ache of what I set aside. At 88, you understand that life is not made of grand tragedies. It's made of ordinary days stacked on top of each other. And sometimes one ordinary decision shapes all the rest. If this meant something to you, don't brush it off. Sit with it. Ask yourself what you're postponing. I used to think I had endless tomorrows. Now I measure time in seasons I might not see again. The window is open a crack beside me. I can hear children playing somewhere down the street. Their voices rise and fall like they always have. Life keeps moving. I made one choice at 20. It wasn't cruel or selfish. It was careful. It was loving. It was afraid. And it became my whole life. I've made my peace with that. There's a kind of calm that comes when you stop arguing with the past. I don't hate the young man I was. He did the best he knew how to do. I just wish he had known that love and fear sometimes wear the same face. Now I sit here at 88, hands thinner, breath shorter, watching the light change across the room. And I understand something simple. You don't always get another chance to choose.